Welcome to the EPG Pathashala, the lecture series in computer science this is the 20th module for the subject compiler design, where we will be seeing the semantic phase of the compiler in particular we will be talking about dependency graph, attributes and topological sorting. So, semantic phase of the compiler is what we are going to look at in terms of and we will also learn about type checking, which is a essential part of the semantic phase of the compiler. So, the functions of the semantic phase. So, what we have as of now is the input has been converted to a representation, which is a parse tree representation, and this parse tree will have a derivation tree, rather will basically have multiple, every node can have more than 2 children or 3 children, depending upon how many grammar symbols are there, and it will simply say whether a particular programming construct is correct, is obeyed or not obeyed, and it checks whether every sentence or every statement in a particular input programming language is correct or incorrect. Now, with this as the input, the semantic phase does 3 things. One is it converts the parse tree to an annotated parse tree, and it is also going to convert this to a binary tree representation. Okay. And in the process of doing that, it is going to do these 2 things. One is a syntax directed definition, and the other one is the syntax directed translation, SDD and SDT for short. And you will be doing this using what is called as writing semantic rules for every programming construct. And you will also be establishing the evaluation order of a particular grammar construct. And you will also be doing type checking. So, these 4 things are mandatory for the semantic phase of the compiler. Now, this is what where we are now. The input is given to a lexical analyzer, which is going to tokenize it and give it to a syntax directed translator. Now, this is going to be your parser generator along with your what is called as the semantic phase of the compiler, which is going to get help from the YAC specification with semantic rules and the JVM specification to convert this to a Java bytecode. So, this is what is going to be the situation now actually. So, it is going to convert this to some intermediate representation if you want to put it in a different sense. So, what is a syntax directed definition? A syntax directed definition connects a set of semantic rules to production. So, for every, okay, let us get this very simply understood. You have a programming language, and you know how to write the syntax of programming language, and for every programming language constructs you have a corresponding context free grammar, and the context free grammar has got productions. So, for every grammar's production you can write semantic rules, okay, that is going to be called as the syntax directed definition, okay, which is going to connect the semantic rules to the productions of a particular grammar construct. Now, in addition to that, you also have what is called as attributes assigned to terminals and the non-terminals. As we all know, a context free grammar has got non-terminals and terminals along with productions. So, for every production, you are going to write a corresponding semantic rule. Okay, that is your syntax directed definition. And you will write the semantic rules keeping in mind the attributes that is assigned for a terminal as well as a non-terminal. And then after that you can use what is the typical depth first traversal algorithm is used to compute the values of the attributes in the parse tree using the semantic rules. So, this is what happens in the case of a syntax directed definition. After the traversal is completed, the attributes contain the translated form of the input, and thus you have actually converted your parse tree into what is called as an annotated parse tree. Okay. So, in the process of syntax directed definition, you are converting the parse tree to a annotated parse tree, where you will be writing semantic rules for every programming constructs, and you will also assign the attributes for every terminal and non-terminal of a particular grammar. Okay. So, you are making use of here a depth first traversal algorithm to compute the values of the attributes. That is done using the semantic rules which you have basically specified. So, we will see examples as we move on the slides. So, this is what happens in syntax directed definition. For example, consider this grammar. The production is L produces E followed by N, E produces E1 plus T, E produces T, T produces T star F, T produces F produces parenthesis E close parenthesis, and F produces digit. Now this is a simple expression grammar. I simply have one more production appended to this, which is L produces E followed by N. So this left hand side produces the expression followed by a new line character. So what is the corresponding semantic rule here? The semantic rule says print simply E dot value. Okay. The second semantic rule is easier to understand. So this LHS E dot value is nothing but sum of the value of E1 and T. So I have E1 dot value, I have T dot value. Now what is this value? This value is actually the attribute assigned to E1. Okay. And I am going to connect this using the plus operator to assign it to E dot value. Now I have E produces T. So what do I do now? Simply says that when there is a production of this particular form, you simply copy the value of T and put it into E. Okay, that's what it basically says. E dot value is equal to T dot value. Similarly, the last next one, T1 dot value into F dot value. T dot value is equal to F dot value here. And here F dot value is nothing but when I have a close parenthesis, when I have E within a pair of parentheses, what does it mean? What does it basically mean? I am trying to actually prioritize. I am trying to actually evaluate this E first before proceeding on to any other thing. So therefore, I will assign the value of E in terms of semantic action. I will copy the value of E and put it into F only. Now when I have F produces digit, F dot value is equal to digit dot lex value. So whatever that value is specified as digit itself, that is given to this F dot value as a scenario. So this is the semantic rule. You will write semantic rules for all your programming constructs irrespective of whether it is going to be a value, sometimes it could be value, sometimes it could be simply assigning types, sometimes it could basically be computing an expression, etc. So whatever it is, you will try to write semantic rules for all your programming constructs. So this is how the annotated parse tree is going to look like. For example, if I have an expression 9 plus 5 plus 2 n, so I will have the derivation tree which is being constructed, and we know that how will the derivation tree look like? L produces E followed by n, then E will produce E plus T, then this E will produce again E plus T, this E will be T, this T will be F, similarly this T will be also F, similarly this T will also be F. So I have got the expression mapped onto my derivation tree. So this without the values will be the parse tree that we have already seen. If I simply assigning value, I know that F dot value is nothing but the lexical value of the digit. So I will get 9 here, similarly I will get the value 5 here, similarly I will get the value 2 here. Okay, this is 2, there is a typo here. Okay. So then this T dot value is also equal to simply F dot value. So I copy 9 here, similarly I will copy here 9, because as you could see this production T dot value is E produces T has E dot value is equal to T dot value. So what do I have here? So this is corresponding to E produces T, so I can copy the values as it is. Okay. And then what is this trying to do? I have a E produces E plus T. Okay. So this value is nothing but the sum of E dot value plus T dot value. So I have computed 14 here. Similarly, this T dot value gets 2 here. So this is nothing but E dot value plus T dot value, which is nothing but 16 here, and so is the case with L. So L simply prints the value 16. So it's not shown basically here. So this is how you construct the annotated parse tree. So that is the after doing the annotated parse tree, what do you have to basically do? You have to compute the nodes by performing a depth first traversal. So procedure is to visit every node. N is a node given to you. So for each child m of n from left to right, visit m and evaluate semantic rules at node n. So this is how basically you have done. So this is the algorithm, which is nothing but the DFS algorithm, depth first search algorithm. So how did we do that? So we have basically gone past till the 9. We evaluated this, and I want to evaluate this. I have to evaluate F dot value, T dot value, and then come back to E dot value here. So I have basically gone all the way up till the first F dot value and then have integrated the values to get up to the root. So this is nothing but a DFS which is being performed on the parse tree to actually compute and assign values, which is based on the semantic rule which is already written. Okay. Now in terms of attributes, every terminal and non-terminal has attributes. So attribute, the values can basically represent either the numbers which are literal constants, or it could be strings, again they are literal constants. It could be memory locations also, such as a frame index of a local variable or a function argument. I can say E dot value is equal to T dot value. So, I can say that whatever value is available in T, that gets copied onto E. So, that is going to be memory location based copy. It can also have a data type for type checking expressions. We will come back to this later. Scope information for local declaration, and you also can have intermediate program representation. So, each attribute value can represent any or combination of these basically. Okay. Now, when I talk about attributes, we need to talk, attributes can basically be classified into two kinds. One is synthesized attribute, other one is called as inherited attribute. Now, I will assign attributes for all my non-terminals and terminals. Okay, I will assign attributes to all my non-terminals and terminals, and depending upon the attribute, I will basically perform my subsequent action of semantic phase later. So, for example, take a production, A produces alpha, and supposing you have a semantic rule for this particular production as B colon equal to a function of C1 to Ck, where f is a function and Ci are attributes of A and alpha. In that case, B is a synthesized attribute of A, and B is also an inherited attribute of one of the grammar symbols in alpha. So, I will have A produces alpha. So, when I have simply B, okay, so B I am referring it to as a terminal, or I can say it is going to be the LHS of a particular semantic rule. In that case, B is referred to as the synthesized attribute of A. I can also consider B as an inherited attribute of one of the grammar symbols in alpha. So, depending upon what alpha is contained, I can say B can also be an inherited attribute. So, it can be either a synthesized attribute or it could be an inherited attribute, not both. So, when will I call something as a synthesized attribute and when will I call something as an inherited attribute is what we are trying to look at it now. So, here for a synthesized attribute, for a particular node n, and if that is going to be a non-terminal A, the attributes are defined by the value of the children and the node itself. So, if a particular node, the value, the attribute is defined in terms of either the node itself or by means of its children, I will call the attributes as synthesized attributes. Okay? And on the other hand, terminals will be the last of a particular derivation tree. So, therefore, terminals can have only synthesized attributes. It cannot basically have it cannot have inherited attributes at all. So, if a particular node's attribute depends upon itself or its children, I will call that attribute as a synthesized attribute. On the other hand, for an inherited attribute, if a particular node n is defined by the parent, itself or siblings, we will call that attribute as an inherited attribute. Defined by the parent, itself or the siblings, we will call that as an inherited attribute. So, for example, here consider this particular grammar, D produces TL, T produces int, L produces ID. Now, this is a production corresponding to a Pascal programming construct which is defined by the textbook Aho Sethi Ullman, which is a 3-author version edition basically, where you have the examples and the explanations are referred with respect to the Pascal programming construct. So, D produces TL. Now, what is T, what is L? T is going to be a type and L refers to the variables. So, here T produces int or it could be real and L produces ID. Now, how do I write the semantic rule corresponding to this? L dot in is equal to T dot type. That is, why am I called this as in is, in refers here to inherited attribute. So, this L depends upon the type of T. So, L is an inherited attribute because the attribute of L, the value of L depends upon its sibling. So, we call L as an inherited attribute. On the other hand, T dot type is equal to int. So, T produces int. So, when I have T here, I will have int as a child of T. So, this type of T depends upon its child int. Therefore, I will call T as a synthesized attribute. Okay, we will see this example further as we move on. So, similarly, I am just expanding that example here. L dot n is equal to T dot type. T dot type is equal to integer. T dot type is equal to real. I am just assuming T is going to take only 2 data types here. One is int, other one is real. And then L produces L1 comma ID. where L1 dot in is equal to L dot in, and then add type id dot entry comma L dot in, and L produces id is add type id dot entry comma L dot in. Now here look at this variable L1, okay. This variable L1 also gets the attribute of type from id, okay. Now this id, where will it get the attribute from? That gets the attribute from the lookup table. So therefore L1 is also going to be an inherited attribute. It depends upon its child or its parent, therefore it is going to be or sibling. So therefore L1 is also going to be an inherited attribute here. Now in the context of that, so we have inherited attribute and we have basically synthesized attributes. So in that context, we are going to expand this syntax directed definition is one that uses synthesized attributes exclusively, is called as an S attributed definition. So SDD that is going to be extensively using synthesized attribute is called as an S attributed definition. A parse tree of an S attributed definition can be annotated with a simple bottom up traversal. So you have to do this. YAC on the other hand only supports S attributed definition. So this is just an additional information because we were talking about in the context of YAC. There is one more called as L attributed definition, where a syntax directed definition is L attributed if each inherited attribute of xj on the right side of A depends only on the attributes of the symbols x1 to xj minus 1 and the inherited attributes of A. So therefore if a particular xj depends only upon its LHS x1 to xj minus 1, we will call that as a L attributed definition. Now here consider this parse tree again. So D produces T dot L, T actually I am substituting that as real. So this L will be again L dot in and comma ID, and this is going to be L dot in comma ID. So now look at this L dot in has got the value real from this T, okay, and this L dot in also has got the value real from this parent, okay. This L dot n also has got the value real from its parent, and id dot entry will have the type as real from its parent, okay. But id is a terminal, therefore it is a synthesized attribute. L dot in and L dot in has got it from the parent or the sibling, therefore L is going to be an inherited attribute here. So this is what we look at as L attributed definition. Supposing if I have A produces xy, so supposing I have x dot I will be equal to A dot I and A dot S will be equal to Y dot S. So this is one example, and similarly x and y there is a relationship, Y dot I is equal to x dot S. So how basically they are going to be linked upon is what we have shown here. That is what we have defined here in the case of L attributed definition. So where the inherited attributes of A will be used for defining a particular node's attribute, as well as the attributes of the symbols x1 to xj minus 1 will influence the attribute of xj. So this is how we show basically here. The L attributed definitions does a normal order of evaluating attributes, which is again a depth first search, and then it is assigned from left to right, okay. So from left to right you have to basically assign, and you basically do a depth first search. And every syntax directed definition is also L attributed. So when we know that YAC supports S attributed definition, it is also going to be L attributed, because we have just now seen that the YAC parser will support only S attribute definition, and S attributed definition is also done by doing a depth first traversal. So this is a definition for a node n, we have just now seen that. So synthesized versus inherited attribute, and we have also seen the S attributed versus L attributed definition. So this is again what we have basically seen. So in this example, the synthesized attributes are T dot type and id dot entry, and the inherited attribute is only L. As I already said, by default the terminals are going to be synthesized attribute, and T on the other hand depends only on its child, either int or real. So therefore T is also going to be synthesized. ID is going to be terminal, therefore it is a synthesized attribute. On the other hand, inherited attribute is nothing but L, because it depends upon its sibling and then subsequently also depends upon its parent. So, in the context of attributed definitions, we have associated a direction for the dependence of value. So, for example, here A dot A depends upon x and this y. So, this A is computed from x and y. On the other hand, here this x is computed from A and y, and this y is computed from this A and x. So, this shows the direction of dependence of one variable or one attribute on the other. Okay. Now, supposing there is if you convert this into a graph, the graph is called as a dependence graph because it indicates which node's value depends upon which other nodes, okay, which node's value depends upon which other node. Therefore, this graph is called as a dependency graph. So, the edges in the dependency graph shows the evaluation order for the attribute values. Now, if there is a cyclic dependence, then it is going to be an error because I cannot evaluate any particular node at all. So, therefore, this graph should be a acyclic graph. Okay. So, here this is an example of cycle, that is value of A depends upon x, value of y depends upon A, and value of x depends upon y. So, this is going to be a cycle available. So, the graph should basically be a acyclic graph because to avoid computational difficulty, it has to be a acyclic graph. So, this is the example of a parse tree and this is going to be the dependency graph. So, what happens? This value, the value real, that is the type here real, depends upon from here. Okay. As I said, which value depends upon from which value, there is an arrow towards the dependent node from the originating node. Okay. Similarly, here I have L dot in is equal to real, this is ID dot entry. So, this value, okay, influences this value again influences this value, and this value has got the ID is given from here. Okay. So, this is a dependence graph here. And after constructing the dependence graph, what is my order of evaluation? How do I evaluate the dependence graph? That is basically done by what is called as a topological sort. A topological sort is a sorting algorithm where the sorting is not done based on non-increasing or non-decreasing order of inputs. Rather, it depends upon which node should occur before which node. That is, if node A has to occur before node B, so the topological sort will be A followed by B. So, it indicates the order of evaluating a particular node, and that is what is going to be used as an evaluation order to evaluate a particular dependence graph. So, here to properly put a definition, it is a sorting on a directed acyclic graph in any ordering m1 to mn of the nodes of the graph such that if there is an edge from mi to mj, then mi appears before mj. Okay. So, when I have mi first and then mj, then I have to say mi first before mj. So, any topological sort of a dependence graph gives a valid evaluation order for the semantic rules. So, how do I evaluate the semantic rules? So, in this example, so I know that I have to do an id1 dot entry first. So, that is your first variable. So, followed by that I have to do this id dot entry, then I have id3 dot entry, okay, and then I have to look at this t dot type is equal to 4, and then I have to evaluate this particular node L dot in is equal to real, and then I have to get this value is assigned to L dot in, and then 7, and that is going to be again 8 and then 9 and 10. So, I will get two values, this comma is basically has to be evaluated, right. So, this is going to be L dot in is equal to real. So, I have to get this value first. So, and then the second ID and then the third identifier, the three variables, and then I will associate real to this L1 dot L dot in, okay, and then I have a comma and then this L dot in and then subsequently this L dot in. So, this is an example of topological sorting. So, how do I, this is a small routine. So, I will have to get id1 dot entry first and then id2 dot entry, then id3 dot entry, and then I can say t1 dot type is equal to real, and then I can say L1 dot in is equal to t1 dot type, and then I have to add the type of id3 as corresponding to the type corresponding to L1.in. Similarly, I can also say L2.in is L1.in, that is it is deriving from L1. I have to add the type id2.entry as corresponding to the type of L2.in, and then I will do this for L3, and then again I have to add id1's type as corresponding to L3. So, these are the 10 steps that has to be basically performed, which is nothing but given in the topological sorting order in the previous slide. So, this is what we have seen. So, this topological sorting is based upon this semantic rules. Okay. So, I can also expand it in different fashion here. So, I am representing the same thing in a different manner here. Now, after doing a syntax directed definition, we have to do what is called a syntax directed translation. So, a parse tree can be thought of as a concrete syntax tree. Okay. We have to construct an abstract syntax tree, and it is assumed to be a more convenient intermediate representation for a compiler. Okay. So, therefore, you have to convert this parse tree, that is a concrete syntax tree, to an abstract syntax tree. So, example here is for let us consider the expression grammar E produces E plus T, T produces T star F, etc., which we have already discussed so much. So, in that case, the abstract tree is generated using the following semantic rule. Again, you will write semantic rules to construct an abstract syntax tree from a concrete syntax tree. So, for every production, you will write a semantic rule. Okay. So, E dot node pointer is equal to make node of, I am making a node, this is the information, this is the LHS pointer, and this is the RHS pointer. Okay. It has got, it is a binary tree basically. So, and then for this particular semantic rule, again it is similar to this one. E produces T is simply E dot node pointer is equal to T dot node pointer. I am not doing any make node here, because I simply have to assign it to a different node. Similarly, T1 star ID will be similar to E dot node pointer only, make node, and ID indicates is an identifier. So, therefore, it is going to be the last node. So, I am calling it using a make leaf function. Make leaf function id comma id dot entry, and so is the case with division operator as well as the last point. So, if you correlate this rule with this, I have E dot node pointer is equal to E1 dot node pointer plus T dot node pointer. So, this is my new node whose operator is plus, which has got pointers to E dot node pointer and T dot node pointer. Okay. So, I have two nodes, E dot node pointer and T dot node pointer, and then for star I have again T star F, and so on and so forth. Based on this, we have actually looked at the attributes, attributes types, that is in terms of synthesized and inherited attributes has been discussed, and we have also talked about construction of the dependency graph and topological sorting as a means of sorting the nodes of the dependency graph, where the dependency graph is constructed based upon having semantic rules, that is going to basically look at all the grammar constructs, and then which has been written basically, and evaluation order is on the dependency graph. We have also done what is called as the construction of the abstract syntax tree, which is converting a concrete syntax tree into an abstract syntax tree. So, typically speaking, the abstract syntax tree will basically be a binary tree as compared to a concrete syntax tree, which can be a binary tree, or it could be a n-array tree also. So, we are converting a derivation tree to a binary tree representation, that is called as an abstract syntax tree, which is going to be used by the compiler for as a means of intermediate representation. Okay. So, we will wind up this module, and thank you.